Partners, and has held positions as a global leader, digital health and advanced analytics, Chief Data Officer, VP Customer Service, IT Director, Interoperability, I don't know what that means, but that sounds cool, and National Lead Business Services Transformation. As Chief Global Strategist with Empower Billion Women, Inc., Shaillee assists with development and execution of global strategy, allowing EBW to expand its contribution and impact with domestic and international markets by financially empowering women to launch, grow, and scale their businesses and support UN's Sustainable Development Goal of gender equality. She has a special interest in addressing mental health for women in the workplace, and boy, have I got a place for you to start.
I did not realize all of that LinkedIn thing was coming in here. So all those long fancy title means I'm a data nerd. That's what it is. I'm a techie and a data nerd. And of course, being the data nerd, as I prepared the speech, I got a bunch of stats and data. But as I hear you guys, it is just so refreshing to be in a forum which is honest and real conversations and vulnerable conversations, which you don't get very often, certainly not in the corporate world. And God knows all my grays that you see and those that are hidden have all come from the corporate world. So I think what I'm going to do is not go with my prepared speech, and if it's okay, share a personal story. No, you're not depressed. You're fine. You'll be okay. Just be strong. Why don't you be positive? Maybe you should pray some more. Are you sure she's up to handling all that's on her plate? You know, we've heard she's depressed. If you've heard any of these words, or people, somebody you know, has maybe come across these words, then maybe my story will resonate with you. I'm Shaillee Chopra, and I have bipolar 2. My first experience with depression was when I was 3 years old. Growing up in a household, looking back, probably my father was depressed. It's possible. He was also on the spectrum of bipolar, so was his family. But no, we did not talk about it. I grew up in India. That culture, you absolutely do not talk about mental health issues. And I wouldn't blame them. Not only do we not talk about it, it is also very possible they did not know it. None of us knew it. I certainly did not know the term depression till almost I was in my 20s. I moved to US after completing my high school. I think I was 16. And much like a golden child, the firstborn, I was obsessed with overcompensating everything that I held within and all the expectations I carried on my shoulders. I was the first daughter in my family to leave home unmarried, and you know, back then, and yes, I'm dating myself, it was a big deal. So what did I need to do? I needed to be perfect, and I needed to be on the top of everything, and boy, that comes at a cost you don't realize till late in your life. In my 20s and 30s, life was moving at a very fast pace. I am a overachiever. I wish I could say recovering overachiever, but I haven't reached that stage yet. I am an overachiever. So career path was going very at a fast pace, climbing up the corporate ladder steadily. And as it happens, that's also the time where your life path is also climbing steadily. I'm married, I had 2 beautiful children. They're little babies, and I'm up for promotion, and boy, I can't miss that promotion, so I go back to work at 8 weeks after having both babies. So the very first time my lows hit me, it was probably postpartum, but I probably carried a strain of that long before I hit it. I did everything I could to hide it, because growing up, I saw how burdensome it was on family and on the loved ones to deal with the mood swings, because that's all I could term it. And really, I think I had just accepted that's just how we Junajas are. That's my maiden name. We are a little larger than life. We don't fix in a box. We're creative. We're overachievers. And we're not stable. We have mood swings. So when my mood swings hit me, I was determined to not be a burden on my family. I was not determined. I was actually just petrified of anybody in my professional realm seeing that I have a mood swing, because to me that converted to a weakness. I did not understand it was not my choice. It was just what was happening to me. And also in that corporate world, and this is decades ago, so okay, 20 years ago, let's start dating yourself. Healthcare is my background, healthcare technology. I was probably the fourth woman in my department when I was hired in this large healthcare system in Austin, Texas, which is where I'm based off. So the first one to have a baby in 20 years, an IT department, because we IT people, technology people, we're little gremlins who live in the basement in a hospital. So no, there was no mother's room. When I came back to work, I had to really literally take a conference room, roll my chair up against the door, and pump at that time and put a note on there, no, please do not knock. I'm not going to open the door. So going there, I still did not understand this was depression. And even though my OBGYN, after I had both kids, told me you're going through severe postpartum, I wasn't going to take meds because that's a sign of weakness. So I did not take meds. I did not tell anybody. I worked harder. I overcompensated by my achievement, by showing up there at 7 in the morning, picking up the kids, or showing up with a big splat of, kids' yogurt hand on my back. That was just life. That's just how you roll, because that's how my mom rolled and my grandma rolled. We all just made it happen. So talking about corporate world, yes, we've come a long way, and we still are coming a long way. There is no awareness for that. There was no safe space to talk about, as a new mom, your body is going through a lot. There was no safe space to learn, to reach out, to talk about, it's okay, because I was up for promotion for vice president at that time. And boy, I wasn't gonna let that down. No depression, no crying kids, no sleep deprivation was gonna hold me back, and I did get my title. But it all kept coming at a cost, because every time it would get harder for me, I would work even more to compensate. We did not talk about mental health in the culture I came from. We still don't talk about it in the culture, in the society that I live here, even though I've been here over 2 decades now. We don't talk about it. There's a lot of misperceptions because we're not educated. Our school educations, our college educations are so much about science and English and biology and chemistry and business. Do we talk about health and wellness? Or what does it take to be, to do life, to embrace all that comes with life? The messiness. We don't talk about it, so we don't know. So we are caught up in the misperceptions and the stigma that's related to that. So my 20s and 30s went, I definitely kept having bouts of my depression, which I just overcame by lifestyle. I'm spiritual, I meditate a lot. Every little while, when I did actually reach out and talk to either close friends or family, it was met by, you just need to pray more. That's what you're doing. You need to pray more, it'll be fine. Be strong, be positive. You've got your beautiful children, great husband, great job. Why are you depressed? You have no reason to be depressed. I don't need a reason. I don't choose to be depressed. I am depressed. Mm-hmm. So I learned not to talk about it. Come mid-40s, career is flying very high. Things are going very well. And I'm traveling for work. I believe I was traveling back from Saudi Arabia at that time. I'd gone there to do some strategy work for His Highness and his cabinet, which is a very interesting story, but a different one at that time. And in my plane, I experienced my first panic attack. I did not know what that was. I had never experienced it. I thought I was having cardiac arrest, but my brain kept going, damn it, you run 3 miles every day. How could you be having a heart attack? It was not, it was a panic attack. In my mind, I think, all right, let's go to the doctor. Let's take 3 days off. It'll be great. I can catch up with cleaning the closets and, volunteering in the schools, and I'll get better and I'll get back to work. It didn't happen. It was my time to unravel. it was my time finally to stop holding it all together and break apart, fully break apart, so I could be put back together right this time. When I was at the doctor talked about something within me, just prompted me to talk about, I know you're talking about anxiety, and yes, work is high stress. I'm doing a lot of international travel. In addition to national travel, I'm leading a large team that across the states. So, my work day starts at 5 in the morning, ends at 8 at night, and I'm doing life in the middle as well with 2 young children. Something within me just prompted me to say, but by the way, I also think I have depression. And I've had it since I can remember, and I think it runs in my family. And then started the battery of tests. Oh, you must go see psychologists. And the fact that you have anxiety and you have depression, you're bipolar. And that was like the end to me. I think just the term when it was said to me, you're probably bipolar, I did not know how to hear it, let alone embrace it. And I think that was probably the darkest time of my life, where I would lecture people in my team about self-care and meditation and take your time. But when it came to me, I was shocked to realize how deep of shame and stigma and fear I harbored within me. Because I saw myself as that crazy person. I cannot show up in the world. I'm crazy. What would my family think about me? My work, my career, they could never accept me as whole or capable or competent. And it's as if the world fell apart, and it did for about good 8 weeks, after which a good friend of mine showed up with a big bottle of wine, and after we'd finished that and one more, literally, physically boinked me on my head and say, you're done moping. So okay, you're bipolar, now what? And then I decided, okay, it's time to channel in my inner OCD type A crazy person, because it's going to be Shaillee versus bipolar. So I decided, all right, I'm going to develop a game plan for it. But before I develop a game plan, I just wanted to pause and really soak in the reality. I don't want to blame anybody for where I am. Why I ended at mid-40s sort of falling apart was probably decades and decades of negligence of self-care, of not addressing all that was layered within the psychological, the society, the social, the cultural pressure, or mostly self-imposed pressure. I also felt a part of that was I was not surrounded, nor did I seek an environment which taught me what self-care is, or what the consequences of lack of self-care in a corporate environment as a woman, as a young woman, as a woman of color, all of that. I did not even seek out for that. I also realized while I had big professional accomplishments, in Austin, Texas, I led the technology for a large healthcare system, 11 hospitals, 2,500 doctors, big stats I could rattle off. I had failed in my leadership career to be that real human, vulnerable leader. Not because I wasn't there for anybody, because that's not the role I see myself. I didn't show up with my whole. I held back part of me because I was too afraid to embrace it. So I had to sit with that, and I had to reflect on my corporate career to say, why is it that we don't talk about it? Why is it that we are ashamed about it? Why is it that we are so fearful? I'll share, really at that time, so deep was my shame, I wished I had cancer, because it would be so much easier for me to give sympathy to myself and to ask for sympathy than to go and say, I'm depressed, I'm bipolar, I really can't hold it together right now. And I had to just sit with that. There's a part of me that could hear and said, that is so ridiculous. But when the shame and the fear runs so deep within you, all those irrational thoughts seem like truth to you. So I decided that was going to be a turning point in my career. I had done about 15 plus years in corporate world, and I felt it was time for me to embark on a change, personally and professionally. So I did what any responsible executive would do when you're at crossroads. You take a sabbatical and you go to Himalayas. And I did go to Himalayas. I did a medical camp with a group of doctors across the world, and no phone, completely unplugged. And I needed to go out there and reconnect with myself, reconnect with humanity. Because I was so caught up in the enticement of material success in the corporate world that I had personally lost in touch with why did I come to healthcare to begin with. And I felt as high corporate ladder I'm climbing, it is my responsibility to do right by others, to promote others, to make careers for them, to give in the community and do service projects. And I had to go to those remote villages in the base camp of Northern Himalayas who have nothing, but they have abundance that is humbling. So it brought me back to my knees, and I came back to my family and I decided, okay, I'm going to deal with it. So I had, for me, now this is where I'm a data nerd. Everything has to be a spreadsheet, an action plan. So I did, and yeah, I'll admit it was color-coded spreadsheet. I had my 4-step process of dealing with my own journey in mental health. Step 1, know it. I decided to get to know my opponent. Thank God for internet. Thank God for the privacy through which you can Google. Be careful of the perils of that too, because there's lots available on the internet. So I actually sat down and started my Google search with depression, with anxiety, with bipolar. And I started to learn. Thank God for NAMI in my town. I reached out to them, the local resources. I joined the groups. It was very difficult, but also very empowering experience to really go out and talk about it. Because I still, even though I had talked about it to my family, my close ones, I was not there talking to strangers. So I did. I learned about it. And then the more I learned about it, I realized, God, it's not a choice to be depressed. It's not something I've done wrong that has led me to it. It's a chemical, it's a physical condition, it's a clinical condition. Being in healthcare, you would think I would know this, and I do, but I never really lived it and believed it. So I did. I decided to learn. I went into therapy. We, coming from Indian culture, we don't do therapy. We just don't. Why? And you might relate to that. It baffles my mind. I don't know why we decide to make it so hard for ourselves, but I did against, I still hear my mom, oh, it's such a waste of time. You just need to go pray a little more and you'll be fine. I was like, yeah, Mom, I'll pray, but I'm also going to go to therapy. So I did. And, I went to therapy for a good year and it was instrumental. I also came back to my roots of spirituality. It really, as I fell apart, really in many spiritual ways, I felt it was a rebirth. I just came back to the basics of self-love, basics of self-care, and truly just humbly seeing self-love is not selfishness. And it's at the heart of it. It's at the heart of respect you give yourself so you can give love and respect to others. So it was a combination of that. It was a combination of a lot of life skills changes. Like, I'm an avid runner. I made sure I committed to that, clean eating. I was very against medications, but I decided to give that a chance too. Why make it hard? But I knew at some point this was something I'm going to tackle with lifestyle changes versus medications, unless of course it is recommended, unless of course I'm at a clinical spectrum where I need to. I wasn't opposed to that. So that was my year of knowing it. My second step was own it. I wasn't going to feel sorry about it. And that sounds so simple, was such a difficult thing for me. I was going to learn now to see myself as a victim, as a patient. Bipolar, mental health, was a condition I had, not my identity. I had to say that to me over and over again. I am not bipolar, I have bipolar. I have depression. I am not a depressed person. I have depression. And as simple as that sentence sounded, to me, it was transformational. It was one of my mantras. So I decided I was going to own it. And a big part of that was learning, gathering the courage to talk about it. So NAMI taught me that, on that. My third step, I hope I can say this, I decided I was going to kick ass. So here I've said ass. No. This is where my type A comes into play. If I was going to do it, I wasn't going to get defeated. So there, channel your craziness in a good way. So, it became about discipline, commitment, committing to the self-care routine, relearning self-care, because we all know it as kids and we are terrible at it as adults. And so I decided I was going to do it, and I was going to keep at it, even the days I didn't want to go for therapy, even the days when I was feeling blue, even the days I doubted my competency. I went back to work. I forced myself to went back to work. I was off for 6 months, and I thought I was almost at the threshold of getting a senior vice president position. There's no way I'm going to get that promotion. But I decided I was going to go and face it, and I went back and I realized that didn't carry any meaning for me anymore. It had shifted what I wanted to do in healthcare. So I accepted that was as much grace and a lot of bottles of wine. That, okay, you didn't get it. Come on now, get up, dust your butt, and you're going to walk ahead. And the last step of my 4-step process was be kind. That was the hardest thing for me to do, is to learn compassion for myself. To be kind, to embrace my imperfections, and to show up as a whole. So even though I had 15, 20 years of corporate leadership experience and all these big accolades in my career behind me, I learned to show up differently in my life, in my personal relationships, in my professional relationships. And as I have heard the feedback echo back to me, it's stunning to me. I was that stuck-up person before, and I didn't see that about myself. Because now I hear I'm more real, and I'm more relatable, and I feed on relationship, and I want to relate to people, and I want to say, yes, go for your next promotion or next business or next big goals, but don't forget to live. Remember, all of that is what you are going for, is not what you are. Those are two different things. So in my journey now, I support 2 foundations that are very dear to my heart, 2 missions. First one is International School of Story, where I am the co-producer of a web series called Voices of Hope. I believe in the power of story. The day I learned to embrace my story, to own my story, and more importantly, to share it, that day I realized how normal it was in my head. It wasn't that big a deal. And it empowered me. It shed layers, and it empowered me to own it fully. And it gave me hope. Whether that gives somebody else hope or not is icing on the top. So Voices of Hope is a web series where we interview really conversational people who are struggling with mental health or the stigma, or have overcome it or working through it. So we elevate the stories of that. Second part we do in International School of Story, we work with corporations in teaching a 5-step process. We like to work closely with the executives, because it's true, it's lonely at the top, and we're so caught up in trying to do things for others, we don't learn how to do it for ourselves, on how to deal with depression and anxiety, and how to model that cultural change in corporations so you can truly create a culture where it is normal to talk about mental health. It is not stigmatic, and you can be more open about what resources are available. So those are the 2 things we work with, International School of Story and with Empower $1 Billion Women, which is an organization focused on promoting the financial empowerment of women. And I can't remember who said it before, financial empowerment means nothing unless there is personal empowerment. So both of these missions are very closely tied to my heart. I'd love to answer any questions you would have about that. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to share.
I have to give you a hug.
Amazing. And only 1 year of therapy. I did 25. You
Now,
just figure-
don't be competitive, okay?
Yeah, you
Got better
you
fast.
think you got there, 25.
Ask me next year.
Yeah, that's,